Welcome everyone to episode 296 of Just Joshing, and it's the start of year 5 of Just Joshing. This is my first episode, my 5th year. That's right, I've been doing this podcast for 4 years. Real quick, I'm not going to go too much of it to the end here. I just want to thank everybody that's come on my show, listened to my show, sponsored my show, and has helped make the show what it is today. So, guys, thank you very much. It has been a hell of a ride, and we got plenty more to come. My guest today is Quinton Barr. Quinton Barr is a producer, director, and this is an interesting conversation as we talk about getting into Canadian television, getting an audience in Canada as a television series, and the goals and the dreams that come with it. Really interesting conversation. I'm just going to get right into it because, well, this is a big episode. Anyways, let's get to the listening, shall we?
This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Indie Imprint. Indie Imprint supports creators by creators. Whether you are writing a book or creating a video game, Indie Imprint works with its clients to produce, edit, and present their projects to the world. For more information, check out their website at www.indieimprint.com. Claudio Murgan is the author of 2 novels, The Decadence of Our Souls and Water Entanglement. The Decadence of Our Souls is a cross between a spiritual book and a thriller, and in Water Entanglement, Claudio delivers a well-written, convincing snapshot of water scarcity into the future. What will you do when you realize that water has memory, water is alive, and that the time for her to awaken is now? The novels are available as an ebook or in print through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or any other major bookstore. The audiobook will be available soon. For more info, look at claudiomurgan.com.
So, the recorder is now officially on. So if you got anything incriminating you'd like to say, make it good.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Josh.
Oh, no, thanks for coming on board. How you doing today?
Do you like Josh or Joshua?
Most people call me Josh. My grandmother calls me Joshua. So, I mean, whatever you'd like.
Your podcast is joshing around, right? So
just joshing is what it's called.
Joshing, right?
Yeah. So, I'm. It's funny. Professionally speaking, when I do like a book or when I actually officially announce my name, my full name is. I usually go by my full name. It's something that was ingrained into me when I was younger, and so I use it. But most people just call me Josh, which is totally fine.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. So. You've been working on a show for a while, from what I can tell. So, how'd that come about?
A while is an understatement. I spent a good 3 years developing as much as I possibly could, spending a lot of my own money doing like little promos for it and stuff. When we finally got an angel investor to come in and give us $25,000 so that I can do the main pilot. As everybody and anybody knows, except for the people on IMDB, that is, making something on $25,000 is extremely hard. Actually, even some of her friends, were, questioning whether or not anybody can do anything on $25,000. But we did it, and we're all pretty proud of it. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool thing. So.
Well, I have a little experience on this. A long time ago, as part of the Calgary Underground Film Festival, you can actually do decent amount of footage really cheap if you have a good group of people with you and you have again the right kind of support. I mean, not just the people you're working with, but the community. You can get a lot done. Still, how many episodes is your series so far?
Well, we've just got the pilot, but I mean, we have 3 seasons written, and we're shooting for 12 episodes per season. But the thing is we want to have at least 150 to 300,000 per episode. Which right now it's on Amazon Prime in the UK and the US. We're currently seeking a platform here in Canada, but as of actually this morning, I was told that there could be someone potentially interested in buying out the content for their streaming platform, which I can't really talk about too much.
Well, then that's totally your bag. I mean, you got to keep that stuff to yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, until it's released, right? But like, yeah, it'd be really cool if I don't. Again, I can't really say much, but this would kind of cover a lot of territory, which is cool.
Well,
And so far, the show's gotten decent review, I guess. I mean, I don't know, like, how long you've been in the industry, but, like, you can't gauge things from, like, say, IMDB or whatever. Like, you kind of have to gauge it from more of the community, because there's a lot of trolls and stuff. Like, on the IMDB, there's a few bad reviews, but I honestly, like, a lot of people know that there's just people that just specifically go on there to troll, because they have no lives. They usually probably just sitting around, doing nothing, right? So
well, so here's how I look at things, because I've done a bunch of stuff. You're gonna get a lot of good reviews. You're gonna get bad reviews, and both are okay. It's when you get, like, apathy that you should be worried. If you get no one listening, no one responding, no one paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a decent amount of both, which is great. And actually, there's one guy that specifically is known for, like, trolling really big things, that actually took the time to write a massive review. And if you look at all of his reviews, they're all really bad. But the projects that he's reviewed are really good. So it's actually kind of an honor for that one.
Well, I mean, it goes both ways. Like, criticism is an interesting thing, because sometimes, okay, you're putting together a television show, which, like, film is I always consider film a bit of a miracle, because it takes a lot of things going your way to even get a pilot. Like, for you, I mean, this is probably a vision, like, if you've been working on it for 3 years, but you've probably had this in your head far longer.
Oh, yeah. It's probably been about 6 years for sure.
Yeah, so you've had this for 6 years. So you wrote probably a basic concept 6 years ago. You've revised it, polished it as best as you know how, whatever the opportunities were given to you. Then you had to find a crew to film what you did, right? Then you had to find the right actors, actresses, which were both within budget and then had the right look and appeal, and chemistry with yourself too, right? Because everything has to kind of tie together. Then, and then on top of that, you had to find a platform. Even getting a pilot onto the Amazon Prime, right? That was probably an awful lot of work.
It was about a good 2 weeks of a bunch of crap for sure. And then apparently what had happened is they do invite people to release in Canada if they think that you will not look for licensing fees. Now what happened is apparently they gave us a 3-star out of 5 on their platform, which then in turn kind of screwed us over in a sense, because now they think that we're going to get so big that we'll turn around and look for licensing fees. So it's a bittersweet kind of thing. But yeah, just to get it on there was quite a feat, just because for one, you have to literally wait just to see if they approve it to be on the streaming source, and then if you're not approved to be on the streaming source, then they just throw you into, like, the catalog, where then you have to use more marketing muscle just to drive people to go and actually purchase, your episodes. So yeah, there's a lot actually that people don't know, and I mean, my experience so far, I'm kind of up in the air with Prime. I'm grateful that they accepted my show, but a little bit frustrated that I still have to look for a Canadian outlet, because it's made in Canada.
Well, that's the irony of Canada for you right there.
Yeah.
See, I mean, the thing about Canada, my 300th episode I recorded at a book conference in Calgary not too long ago, and one of the things I said was the biggest fault Canadians have is they really don't believe in their own people, and that in terms of anything that's produced and made. One of the big tragedies of it is, you probably have a great show, but no one here. It's a weird thing. You have to prove yourself, which to some degree makes sense, But on the same token, it's like the opportunities will come from other places before they come from Canada, which is
always like that. As my acting career, I've been an actor for 14 years, and ironically, just touching on what you just said, my show is the first one that I actually booked. But I mean, I booked it myself. It's so hard to find good outlets and good opportunity here in Canada, because they don't believe in the talent here, which sucks. But that's why I think my show has a lot of bearing here and a lot of roots now, is because I've made it very specific that I'll only cast Vancouver or surrounding area in Alberta and Toronto, just Canadian talent mostly, and maybe a few small roles in the States, and that's it. So I've kind of flipped it around, where as an actor for as long as I've been, and being on the circuits here in Vancouver and in Calgary and in Toronto, you spend years spending tons of money training and all this kind of stuff, when every single role you go up for is a nurse or a paramedic or some kind of a bouncer or some kind of just a small little principal role that about 500 people are fighting for. And it's not fair. It's not fair that you sit there and demand an insane amount of financial distribution from one person to train, and then don't give them the opportunity to actually use it, right? So the good thing with this is that with this style of show too, it actually hits exactly what you're saying. We are really known for comedy. People know us as just being funny. We're funny Canadians. There's not a whole ton of really cool sci-fi style shows in Canada. I will say Stargate was, it stood alone, but Stargate was a completely different style. It was more, science fiction fantasy rather than, mystical fantasy, kind of style. So
it was more an action show than a science fiction show.
The Stargate, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it had some science in it, but it was an action show. It was good. For what it was really good. But
it's all right. But the thing is there was way too much CG for it to have its own flair, if that makes sense. Like with what I'm doing, there's a ton of practical effects and practical SFX makeup and creatures and stuff, things that cost money. And I think the biggest problem with the reason why no one does those kind of things here is because when someone like myself or other producers get a big chunk of money, that doesn't come around very often in Canada, so they want to line their own pockets. Where instead, for me, I would rather work harder, spend more money, and please the fans, rather than line my pockets. Now, I mean, that within reason, right? I mean, because ultimately you can never really please your fans, but at least give them what they really want rather than what they're just going to watch,
So, I guess I'm going to ask this then. We're going to go here and then we're going to come back to this point. So, you started as an actor. So, I guess, who are you and what's your story? What do you bring to the table? Let's go big, and we'll get smaller as time goes on.
That's a good question. That's a really, really loaded gun that you just asked there.
Uh-huh.
I grew up in the lower mainland of British Columbia. I was abandoned when I was 9 years old. My mom, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. My real dad, he's just a drunk that left when I was really young, and then my stepdad, which I just call my dad, moved into that role of a father figure. Tried to keep things together as best he could until my mom left, and then forced me and my oldest brother into the care of the ministry, because my, as I call father now, wasn't my legal, guardian, and there was no other fit parents to take me. So yeah, I spent a lot of my young years in like a lot of group homes. I think the paperwork shows that I was in more than 30-something group homes and about 15 or 16 foster care places before I made my way into becoming, I guess, a young adult. And I had all this like burning rage and passion and all this stuff that I didn't know really how to mold into anything, because I was just getting into trouble a lot. So actually, something fun fact, I guess, that a lot of people don't know is that I was actually into music starting from when I was about 14 on till I was about 19. I actually was sponsored to do a couple of free mixtapes and stuff in studios, and when I was about 19, I did my first professional mixtape that I almost got signed to Sarah McLachlan's management, Sheffield and Sons.
Cool.
When that didn't happen, even after I think it was like 3 meetings that I went in for, and I thought that it was golden, but it was right before I don't know if you know the name Classified. He was coming out too as well, and me and him had the same kind of style, and they weren't ready for us at that point, but then he just, I guess, kept pushing, and I kind of moved into the film world, because what had actually happened is my first role ever, I actually just called up a director of someone that was casting and just asked them if they needed music. And when they said yes, they needed some music, I said, well, can I trade you one or two of my songs for a small role to get started in film? And after about 3 weeks of begging and pleading, Dexter Blooming, if you're ever listening to this, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity. Behind the Eight Ball was the movie. He said yes. So, yeah, that's ergo starting my long and stressful career in the arts. And yeah, ever since then, I just tried to learn trial by fire, and I was thrown into the deep end. And I think my first agent actually, I went into Muse Artist Management. I was talking with a guy that worked, he was a writer at Lions at Warner Brothers in the States. And, even to this day, he still messaged me like really inspiring quotes and stuff. He actually got me an interview with a friend of his. I don't know what the level of this agent is anymore, but at the time he was one of the top, I would say, 10 agents in Vancouver. His name was Emilio Centura at Muse Artist Management, which is now broken. They don't operate. He's now with a different agency. But anyways, long story short, there was too many conflicting people on his roster, but they liked me. So he threw me down to this guy named Brad Melismone, and he ended up accepting me, and that's how I kind of got started in the industry. Since him, I've had over probably 10 or something different agents that have tried to do whatever they do with no avail, because I guess I'm stubborn. I've always wanted more. I'm never satisfied with getting auditions for little EMT and doctor and bouncer style roles. I have a lot to offer as an artist, and I really like to dive into characters. And then, I guess just after years of struggle, I finally came to a conclusion that the only way that I'm gonna most likely get to a place of being, I guess, artistically satisfied is if I start my own projects, and I did. And then, again, trial by fire, started my own company, tried to figure it out, became a producer, learned how to edit, have a lot of great contacts and friends now in the industry that help, that we're working on a bunch of different stuff together. And actually a pivotal moment happened just not too long ago, because I'm actually casting for something right now. It's a big short film we're doing. My old agent is actually submitting his talent now to me.
That's cool.
So my very first agent, yeah. So it's kind of like a full circle revelation.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy, actually.
Well, no, it's amazing. Like the art world's very small.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what part of it you're in. They're very small. Everybody kind of sooner or later, you get to know everybody, and it's funny because roles reverse sometimes. When you start, you remember who was there when you started, and then when you go through whatever it is you go through, sometimes you see the same people, but the roles are different, and it's kind of really cool when that happens. So, yeah, it sounds like you've had a heck of a ride. So
yeah, it's just beginning really, because our show's been released for about a week and a half. One of my youngest actors, Alexander Dukovic, just got nominated for a Joey Award here in Vancouver for the role that he received in Blue Flame. As of, I think, yesterday morning, our star meter on IMDb has gone to an all-time high of 6,700 something, which is a pretty huge win. We're just cooking. The train has left the station now, and it's just beginning. It's cool.
Yeah, it sounds like you've started a really cool journey. So I'm gonna ask this then, when you chose to go down the acting part, did you just want to act? Did you think about directing or producing then, or was this like out of necessity? Like you said, so you came to the conclusion that you were gonna do, the only way you're gonna create your opportunities was if you did it yourself. But I feel like you still had to have a really big passion to actually get into producing or directing and show running. So my question is, did you have these aspirations prior to it, or have you kind of learned to love it, or do you just kind of go, well, this isn't quite this is more than I bargained for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Honestly, I think I've always been a natural leader, and there's a few key elements to that make me understand this. Being a leading actor, to me, just to break it down, it doesn't mean that I'm like the star or this or whatever. It just means that I'm helping guide the cast. And it doesn't mean the cast that's alongside me, that's fighting with me in these roles, have any lack of talent or anything like that. It just means that, I help guide the ship. I help guide the ship. Everybody else has their key elements. And I think that when I became a producer, as much as it kind of hurt, because, a lot of these people that I'm casting, that I'm giving all these opportunities to, I'm sitting here in an office doing all this paperwork, helping build their career, and I feel like in certain moments that I'm being left behind because I'm not doing what I really feel my heart desires, which is acting. Like, that's what I really am very passionate about. I love being an actor, but honestly, being a pioneer, I've come to realize, has its ups and downs, and like, you kind of have to sacrifice one for the other in certain times to get to a certain point. So, I mean, as a director, I see things that I think not a lot of people do, which is kind of nice, but it is a very full-time job, as producing is too as well, right? So, when I'm behind the camera and I'm directing, I'm trying to pull the best that I possibly can from the actor for the acting portion and for the scene, where some directors are more just going off script and going off of just a vision. So I think it gives me kind of an advantage in that aspect, because acting means so much to me. But yeah, no, I definitely, I think moving forward, when the series gets picked up, and we're moving full time on it per episode, I honestly believe that I'm just going to become a full time, like one of the main producers and just the leading actor, because it's a lot of work to do what I've done. And I know that honestly, when things start progressing, I want to be involved as an actor in other projects. I already am involved in other projects, so it's like, I don't have time to do that. But I admire people like myself that do. So, once I get to a level where people, I guess, start respecting me more that are already at a higher level, it's going to be nice that, like, to be able to work with those kind of people, like Kevin Smith, for instance, right? Like, he's dipped into a lot of different things here in Vancouver. And I mean, one of his main passions was acting, which is pretty cool to know that other people have done what I'm doing, is just different roads. He used his fame to kind of get into a little bit more of what he's doing now, with the group that he started with, right? So with me, I'm kind of just pushing, I guess, a vision right now, like just an idea, because I'm not really anyone important at this point, right? So
okay, so a couple things. You've been talking about getting other people's respect, but I'm gonna ask, like, with everything, this is gonna sound like a really hard if I'm coming off harsh, but if I am, that's not the intent. Just a thought. I look at like when I did this podcast, like for oddly similar reasons you did. Like, just I was always into interviewing people. I figured it would help me break into the industries I would go into, and I ended up. And as you well know, when you go down these roads, you go down, like, the path does not seem very straightforward at all. Like, you figure, I'm gonna act. I'm gonna get maybe into these plays or on these shows, maybe into movies, whatever the aspiration was at the time. And it didn't work out anyway like you thought. It's this really weird curved line of, okay, I'm learning now how to build a set. Now I'm learning how to tell a story behind the scenes. Now I'm learning how to direct people for this particular scene, to play out this vision in my head. What does this have to do with my career? Me, I learned how to interview people. I've learned how to I've had to learn how to get people's stories out of them. And this is not me writing a novel right now. This is me not writing a short story right now. This is me not writing a comic book right now. Like, the things I really, really am passionate about. But somewhere along the way, I realized that for me, it wasn't about it. It's no longer about me getting anybody else's respect for what I'm doing. It's about, am I proud of what I'm doing? Am I happy with? Is the product I'm producing, whatever that is it as close to the vision in my head as I possibly can make it? Am I telling the story I want to tell? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? And I stopped worrying about that level of respect. I worried about more my own self-respect in terms of what I can accomplish. Because I learned a long time ago that you can't control how other people see you.
I completely agree with that. I mean, I don't mean, I guess let me reiterate, like, I don't mean I'm seeking approval from other people so that they'll work with me. I mean, hell, like, look at IMDB, for instance. That's something that, there's a lot of people that look at that as, like, a hierarchy in the film industry, and it's a mean-all, be-all, and the ratings on there, and this and that, and whatever. But, what people don't understand is there's one underlying thing. Anybody who's anybody can create an account. Anybody who's anybody can write a review. It's actually not regulated whatsoever. So, it's kind of like, do you see the forest for the trees? So, like, yeah. No, I honestly, like, I am extremely proud of everything I'm doing. And I have no regrets of how I've done it, why I've done it. There was a shit ton of things that happened that were out of my control while we were filming this specific episode on such a micro budget that, kind of determines certain things. And at the end of the day, even though those mistakes were made and we tried to correct them as much as possible in post, it all comes down to things that you can't control, like funds. Like, you have a certain amount of funds for a certain department and they drop the ball. There's nothing you can do about it, right? You can't get mad because they're still there doing it for way less than what they should be, right? So again, I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Moving forward in life and with my career, I don't believe my career is just going to be acting and producing. Honestly, I believe that there's going to be many people that reach out and ask me, hey, you'd be really good to play a role in this thing here, but can you also direct it for me? Because they see that I have a good vision for putting things together. What I meant though is like moving forward on other projects, I'm sure that I'll have enough respect that people won't try to overload me with like, hey, can you produce, can you edit, can you direct, can you star? Because that's what I've done for my projects, right?
But that comes down to that somewhat also comes down to what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, and saying no. Like, one of the hardest things you learn as you get older is you can't do everything. Like, as you just pointed, you just can't. There's just no way you can do it. You have to figure out where you're comfortable doing, whatever that is. And when you do that, that does mean at some point, sooner or later, you gotta say no. And this doesn't just apply professionally. It's personal. It's what boundaries you set for yourself. And as you get older, as you accomplish more, it's actually easier to set boundaries, I find.
I think so, because I think that when you get older, and it's almost like someone being in the military. Once you've seen battle, unfortunately, you kind of, I guess there's like a slight patina on you. You know what I mean? And in a room full of people in the arts, some people think I'm an asshole. I'll put that up there. I'm not an asshole. A lot of people that really know me know that I have a really big heart and I'll do anything for you. I'm a little bit standoffish sometimes because of the fact that I work so hard in the trenches. And where I was going with the people in the room is that, certain people you can just tell, that they've worked their ass off and that there's a little patina on them that just kind of resignates hard work. So those kind of people are elevated and, kind of like, you elevate to them as well as them to you because, whatever. And then there's certain people that you can just tell that just want to kind of like utilize everything that they can possibly utilize from you so that they don't have to work hard. And I think that's obviously the indie industry. It's a very sticky battle. It's a war ground, right? So, and there's a lot of people that are upset that they haven't had an opportunity yet, and I mean, hell, just to those people that may be sitting there listening that are, maybe upset still that it's like, nothing's happened for them. I mean, I spent over 14 years without really booking anything. Like, I probably spent over 150 grand just as an actor in courses and this and that or whatever. It happens. You just have to figure out a way, and you can't give up. And I know that sounds very, stereotypical and like, a cop-out that everybody says, but I mean, it is. Like, if this is your life, it's a life decision. It's a choice.
Well, persistence is omnipotent. Talent only gets you so far. Brains, drive, those things are great, but you gotta be persistent with whatever you choose to do. You have to be relentless, and honestly, it's okay to be a little bit of an asshole. You have to be sometimes.
Yeah. I used to be a nice guy.
Oh, no.
And I realized that being a nice guy gets me in trouble because I have too big of a heart. So.
Well, it's not. You can still be a nice guy. It's just.
For sure, and I am. Trust me.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to be okay with being a little ruthless. You have to be. Look. I mean, I only got so much time in the day. You only got so much time in the day, and people that want to actually be there with you on some level or another are going to find ways to be there with you and work with you and do things with you. And if they don't, right, they will find ways not to. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
Right?
If someone doesn't see value in who you are and what you're doing, it's not worth it to even be around them.
That's it. And as you get older, you realize that is not a big group of people. It really isn't. And that's okay. Like, everybody has their own path they have to walk, and you have to accept that. And also, I accept the fact that people are going to do what they want to do, whatever that is. And you can't control that. But what you can do is, like, okay, is what you're doing in line with what I'm doing? Can we work together? And if we can't, it's okay. I can back off. I'm a big enough man to back off. And if I look like the bad guy in the moment, well, then I'm the bad guy in the moment, right? It's not like I'm trying to be on purpose mean, but you gotta have, again, it's about boundaries. It's about knowing what you can and cannot do, and being smart enough not to cross those lines.
Yep, no, I completely agree, man, 100%.
Yeah.
It's definitely a tough industry in Canada because of the fact that it all kind of, drives down back to what we first started on, is that the lack of God, I just lost my train of thought.
Respect.
I'm super tired today. I've just been working so hard trying to get this stuff going. The lack of opportunity, rather, is kind of astounding, actually, in a place that is supposed to be very welcoming to film. We touched on that on a radio show that I was on just the other day. That it's kind of baffling, actually, that people sit there and say there's so much opportunity here in Vancouver, so much this, so much that, but when really it's the people that have booked things out of town as actors, for instance. I'll just start it there, and they do like one or two things, and they say, oh, there's so much opportunity here, and then so what they do is they open up schools, and now they're charging you $250 to come in for a lesson to book a big role. But see, the one key element that they're not telling the students is that the big role that they booked was out of LA or New York or New Orleans or Atlanta,
Well,
so it's actually kind of ruthless, to be honest.
Film's ruthless. It doesn't matter, like, what aspect of it. You have an industry that basically is looking at it like this. It makes something. It generally, shows are made based on the amount of money spent. The more money spent, the more likely the show gets made. That's just how it works. And what these studios try to do is they try to get as much as they can for as little as possible, which, and on just strictly objectively, is good business, right? But subjectively speaking, you're looking at an industry that tends to exploit talent. And that is a very ruthless thing. Now, the thing is, and
the biggest thing is you're ostracized too when you know this and you say it out loud.
Well, it's how you leverage yourself, right? It's how you play your cards. If you know that's how the game is played, right? There is something to be said about how you play. Like, you have to play the game. It's how you play it, though. You have your own bits of leverage too. Well, we aren't going to do this. You can leave. So leave. Right? I mean, it's, again, going back to something I'm saying, it's that willingness to say no. And it's hard sometimes. Like, it's a simple word, but it does take balls to say sometimes. And
well, it's not just a word. It's you're stepping away from, like, if someone offers you, like, if someone came to me and said, listen, I want to buy out, say a short six for my platform, and because you were able to do the first episode on 25 grand, they're like, maybe it needs a little bit of work or whatever, which is good, so we'll give you 50,000 per episode. I can't do it. I can't, because I literally did it on 25 grand to prove to these big networks that they're they're sitting there, because I do know the game. I understand it. Most episodes get about 500 to 3 million for first episodes, not 25 grand. So I did something that's watchable on 25 grand. Executives should be literally sitting in their offices saying, fuck, we can get this show for like $200,000 per episode, which is peanuts to them. It's fucking nothing. You know, and they're laughing to the bank. But see, for us, because of how we've set things up, you know, we're now starting off with a decent budget where we can pay more people, make better product, you know. So of course, you know, obviously I understand the game, but you're right. When it comes to that word no, it would be hard, because I've been working for 3 years to do something and elevate not just myself, but amazing people that are beside me, you know. And for someone to come in and say, you know, well, you know, you did it on this, so here's a little bit more, you know, do it again, would be almost a slap in the face. You'd have to say no.
Yeah.
Because those people should understand that what I did was almost impossible anyways.
Well, that's it. I mean, you've proved that you can do it. That's great. But now that should be worth something.
That's exactly it. That's why we do it that way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point in trying to prove that you can do it on something like that? It's not to prove you can do it and then do it again.
Yeah, no, it's not. But that's, again, it's the nature of the business. You have to understand.
That's exactly it. That's how ruthless it is, right?
Yeah. So you have to have a bit of a ruthless streak in you. And if anything, I'd be asking for more money on your end. I would just ask for it. And I mean, always leave yourself room to negotiate. That's how I look at it now. I mean, I've learned that one the hard way myself, but I mean, I've learned it. And I don't go small. I figure if you really want to work with me, you'll find a way to make it happen. And if you don't, well, that's fine too. We won't. Like, I'm good with that as well. And that's, again, that's something I've learned. Again, I'm going to be an asshole to some people. But on that note, I'm good with that. I can live with what I see when I look in the mirror. And that's more important.
The hardest part, though, being a producer as well, and on this topic of saying no, is that, you know, my co-star, for instance, Jessica Moutre, Alexander Baxter, Kate Ely, you know, Brian Knox McGugan. I gotta say, like, you know, I've got some pretty amazing talent that honestly appreciate what I'm trying to do.
Absolutely.
There's a ton of more people. So, you know, having the opportunity for someone to come at me again and be like, well, you can do it again on cheaply, like, here you go. And for me having to say no, it's not just for me. I'm saying no, knowing that it's going to be just as hard to move forward still, because, you know, I have to let go of that, which, you know, because the first episode, for instance, I didn't take any money. I paid all the actors. I paid as many production people as I could. I didn't make anything. Nothing. I didn't take any money, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So I would obviously do somewhat the same, but I mean, when's enough? Like, I mean, I've got a small family too, right?
Well,
so,
yeah,
it's a very hard to be at this position, and it's sometimes kind of shitty, you know?
Well, I mean, it's what you're willing to do. Like, this is ultimately what this is. Like, do you know the story of Rocky? Like, how Stallone got in the war?
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows Sylvester Stallone. You know, he's a very admirable man, and it's kind of funny actually that you know, in a lot of his movies he has some big guns, because he sticks by his guns, and that's
but the thing of it was, right, he got to the point where he had to sell his dog. I remember, and it was like he was going through some really hard times. But his script was really good, like something special, and they were throwing him. It got to the point where they were throwing him some good money, but
yeah, I think the biggest offer was more money, but they didn't want to have him act in it because they didn't think that he had the ability to do, you know, a Hollywood style film like that, a blockbuster film, and he stuck to his guns and said, no, I will take less money. You know, just pay obviously like me, like, you know, a decent rate, not like a Hollywood rate, you know, and let me star in this thing. And I'm actually really happy that he did that because, you know, look what happened, right?
Absolutely. But I mean, you again, there comes that point where you just gotta say, well, is this worth it? Do I believe in myself? And I will let the chips fall while they fall. Now, obviously, Hollywood doesn't quite work like it did back in the 70s, but there's one of the biggest things that's true of life is at some point you have to take a chance, and that's kind of I think what you're doing right now.
Yeah, it is for sure. And I mean, you know, it's not over yet. There's still a ton of hurdles. Like a lot of people, you know, keep congratulating me. And I don't know what to say to them because, to me, in my head, I've only gotten over one hurdle. You know, to them, it's like, wow, you know, you did this thing or whatever. It's pretty cool that you were able to. But to me, it's like this is not a one-off. You know, there's so much more that I have to do to get established as a series in Canada. It's intense. So yeah, it's a very strange place to be in because I'm still fighting in the trenches. So
you always will. That's how this works. You never will stop as long as you look. Something I had a really good friend of me who's going to do some really big things in a couple of years. He always would tell me every time I see him, it's like because he's got some big accomplishments in the literature world, and I'm like, well, how do you do it? And he always would tell me I haven't done anything yet. I didn't really understand what he meant by that until I won my award last year, and I realized, yeah,
congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. But when I won, I was like, I get it now. No matter how far you get, no matter where you go, right? You're gonna always find that there is always more to do, and you always struggle. It's just the way it is. It's just you're always going to.
I think as a producer, the one thing that I've been told from mentor producers, friends of mine, is that no matter if it's 25,000 or 250 million, it's still going to be stressful. You're still going to find struggle. It's just in different places.
Yeah. No, the nature of your struggles might change, but you're always going to struggle, dude. That's just that's life. Your problems will be different. Sometimes success is more of a fearful thing than failure. I've learned that. But that all said, you have to just don't take for granted what you've accomplished. That's all I'm gonna say. I think that's what everybody sees, and that just accept it for what it is. Enjoy what little.
And it's hard, Josh. It really is. I understand what you're saying, and I'm starting to, it's starting to. I guess kind of like overwhelm me a little bit of the fact, but I just, you then should know, out of all people, that persistent fight that no matter, it would literally take an award for someone to sit me down and be like, you did this, man, for me to really realize,
Do you know what imposter syndrome is?
I think I've heard of.
Okay, so let me lay it. You have two imposters in your life. Tragedy and triumph. They're your imposters. They work a little differently. Tragedy you're familiar with. Tragedy is, right, bad things have happened to me, I must be worthless. That usually on some level is your imposter there. But then there's triumph. Most of us do not. Failure is familiar. Success is not so familiar. Success is something brand new. It's different. It means that what you've done, whatever it is you've done, it doesn't matter what field you've done it in, you've made an impact. Good, bad, or indifferent, you've made an impact. By the way, the fact that you've achieved a pilot on what you did with how you did it, no matter how good or bad it is a feat and an accomplishment. It really is. And it is a success story. However, right, the question that this is where your imposter comes in, right? Now what? How do you follow up? What's your expectations going forward? What's the pressure you put on yourself going forward because you've been here? Whatever you do next, if you don't hit this point, well, good are you? It's different.
Yeah,
it's
enough,
right. That's imposter syndrome. That's probably what you're feeling to some degree.
I think, you know what? I think you're right. I think you hit the...
yeah, so here's the best defense against it is twofold. One, you're right. You haven't accomplished anything yet. You're right to have that, a little bit of that in you always. It doesn't matter where you are on the success chain. It doesn't matter if you're Kevin Smith or Sylvester Stallone or Ryan Reynolds, or it doesn't matter. What you've accomplished so far is nothing compared to what you will accomplish going forward. And you always must keep this in mind. The other thing is, at some point you should ask yourself 2 questions. Alright, here's the 2 questions. First off, how did you get here? However, whatever you controlled on that journey, how did you get here? The second question is, it's 2 parts. Is, okay, what am I doing that could get in the way of me coming back here? Or what am I doing that can make it so right that my mistakes do not matter? And that, my friend, is different for everybody. But if you can figure that out, you will repeat success.
I love it. I mean, there's a tent of philosophical, I guess, atmosphere and what you just said, but then also just a ton of truth. You know,
well,
it's really hard to see success when you don't know it, I guess.
Well,
and trying to repeat something you just did that you don't feel is successful yet, even though, like, I am proud of what we did. I just don't.
It hasn't hit the tempo you expected.
It hasn't hit there yet.
Yeah, right. And
now, is that just me being, like, overly humble, or is that me being afraid of success?
well, everybody's
no, but you know what I mean.
No. I'm going to answer your question. Everybody's afraid of success. It's not familiar.
It's not.
No, it's not familiar. The first couple times. Look, ego's good. Ego's a good thing to some degree.
I think confidence. If ego is attached to confidence, and you can still keep the, you know, the outline of your humble heart in place.
Okay, so can I fill this in? Because this would be my advice.
Your wheelhouse here.
Yeah, this would be my advice. Have the ego to acknowledge that the work you've done is good. Have the humility to never, ever, ever think you're above anyone else in what you're doing. If you can balance that, you'll be fine. If you can't, right, you will fall. That's how it works. Again, ask yourself 2 questions. How did you get here? Right? And how can you get in your own way? Or how can you do something so right that your mistakes don't matter? One or the 2. Right? That, if you can do that, because no one can control what success we have all an idea of what kind of success we want. But the truth is, what success is, doesn't always, it can be exactly what you dream of. Or it might be something completely different. It might be better. It may not be quite what you expect when you get there. The success for a lot of people is about, it's about understanding the fact that all you're really doing is you're putting yourself into the best positions possible to succeed. What you get is entirely, somewhat it feels like chance. But if you're doing the right things, right, you still might do, the paradox of success is you can do everything right and still not succeed, right? And the flip side is, as a result of that, you have to accept the fact that you can do it all right. And still you have to accept that you can still fail. On the flip side, you
here and say that, like, success to me, is, and this is just like my way of thinking. I've never put anybody on a pedestal ever, and I've never thought of myself being better than anybody else. I've always just figured that success in one's field is other people in and or admiring that field, admiring the work that that person is doing in the field. So for me, being in the film and TV industry, if people are digging what I'm doing, they can't get enough of it, they're watching it, they really like the flair that I'm doing, no matter if it's shit to other people and good, whatever. I think to me that's success.
Okay.
You know, I've shared a little piece of my mind and my passion with people, and I think that the passion that I have, I've been told, is very contagious. You know,
that's good.
And you know, people like that. People like to feel that passion that I'm trying to create. I mean, even with the show, it's not, to me, it's not just a show, it's a lifestyle. It's you know, as we've said before, you know, it's the Blue Flame family. Like, we're trying to create you know, like a culture, you know, because it is different than most things, because of the fact that you know, we're trying to use some old school methods that people really admired, but producers stopped doing it because it was too expensive, right?
Or just things evolved. Look, final thought.
They evolved, yes, but I mean, they evolved into more of a computer-generated style, and not everybody appreciates that. Like, people really like, you know, the effort and art form of, say, set deck and, you know, special effects, makeup and stuff like that. Like, you know, that's an art form in those two departments all on its own. And to have something visually tantalizing, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that you spend $3 million on a few scenes for, you know, a blockbuster movie that, you know, it looks somewhat real, right? And I mean, I'm not trashing things that are made like that, because there's a lot of movies like Avengers, for instance. Some of it is pretty good, but I mean, for the most part, most of it is CG, you know. So you have the money to make it look good. You know, on independent stuff, it's really tough to make it look good if you don't have the budget to.
Well, it's a matter of what you're going for. Like, I find that if it's too CG, if it's, well, we'll talk about this, and we'll wrap it up with more thoughts on success. But I think CG can serve a purpose, and if it's done well, although it doesn't necessarily feel real, it doesn't necessarily have to feel real. The important part is, does it serve the story you're telling? Like, I look at something like The Matrix. The CGI in there really makes the story work fantastic.
Of course.
Right? It works, but there's a balance there, because what they were also able to do really, really well is a lot of the, like, if you look at the sets of The Matrix, a lot of the sets, they're very like grimy, they're very dirty, they're very old school. So there's definitely that sense of the actors were interacting with the environments they were in. Consequently, you look at something like the Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3, you could tell that those environments, while some of them are amazing to look at, visually appealing, the actors never had a chance to really interact with them. So I would argue that maybe in terms of Star Wars, right, all right, they overdid it. Finding a balance between them is the ideal today. That all said, when you don't have a budget, there is something to be said about using those. It's about using your creativity. Like, speaking of Star Wars, he didn't have a budget either. Like,
he struggled super, super hard to try to find a way to make, you know, what he did, and Lucas figured it out. You know, he, you know, with that innovative way of scaling.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
Yeah, there's that, but also, I mean, he was just smart. He used what he had to solve whatever problems came in his way, and that's a big part of making anything too, is your problem solving. You're figuring out what can you do, what's the best way you can do it to solve whatever's in front of you, whatever that is. And every story has its challenges, but that all said, it's recognizing what your limitations are and doing what you can within the limitations you have to the best of your ability. And obviously you're going to make mistakes, but you learn from them. And that's
one thing that I was taught, Joshua, from my mentor, is no matter if you do it on an $80,000 Alexa or $1,000 smartphone, make sure that the story is told.
That's right. All. That's it. But
and how you tell that story absolutely does matter.
Yeah.
There's something to say about, trying to do too much CG when there's no need to. And I get that for sure. It's to me, it's, storytelling should be about storytelling.
Yeah.
That's it,
Yeah. No. And obviously, like I said, because it costs so much to make films, sometimes you have to solve problems in very creative ways. One of my favorite films is it's an indie film called The Disappearance of Alice Creed. What I loved about that is because you could tell they didn't have much of a budget. It's a kidnapping story that pretty much takes place in one room. It was incredibly well done. Like the first 10 minutes of the movie, or first 5 minutes of the movie, is them setting up this room where they kidnapped her in. And it's to seal it off completely from the outside world. And I thought this was a clever way to solve two problems. It's a good storytelling device. Basically, it told the audience that everything that's going to happen is going to happen in this room. And it made sense as to why. But number two, it also solved a huge cost for them, which was sets. They had to figure out how to make it work. They made it work within the rooms they had. And it's actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah, no, that movie with, God, what was it? I think it was like 189 Days or something.
Yeah.
A little bit older of a film. I can't remember who was in it, though. But it was about this one guy that was trapped in a canyon, in the Copper Canyons there in like Las Vegas or Nevada or something like that. And he ended up having to cut off his arm or something like that. And but the whole film was just on him.
Yeah.
And it was just about his story, but it was told so well through the story that it didn't matter. Where, if you look at some of the reviews on IMDB, this is why I don't want to get rid of them. A lot of people are like, oh, you can just delete them or whatever. Like, no, I don't want to, because it just proves that there's too many people in the States that have forgotten what real storytelling is. Because a lot of the reviews are fixated on the fact that we didn't have a budget. There's no sets. Some of the CG that we do have doesn't look like it's been done on a $100,000 budget per just like visual effects. And the list goes on, right? And it's like it actually pushes me harder and in my heart wants to move harder just to be able to get a proper budget so I can tell a better story for the story. I won't change any of the things that I'm changing that they're talking about, but it's just because it just tells me that that's kind of what's happened in the film industry, is that it's more about a show now with the big blockbuster stuff. And there's a lot of people that miss storytelling, for real storytelling.
It's just the language of cinema is not something done on film too much anymore, and especially movies. Especially television. I can't say that, but movies, yeah, it's definitely a lost art. Okay, so we're coming to the point where I think we've had a decent interview. What do you think?
I think it's great, man. I appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask one last thing, because you keep going back to defining success as other people appreciating your work. Now, don't get me wrong. I write books. I do a podcast. I love having listeners. I love having an audience. We all do. But the fact of the matter is, right, I can't control who decides to listen to this. I can encourage people to do it, but ultimately it's up to them. And vice versa. You can make as good or bad a product as you can, and ultimately it's up to everybody else to do what they want, whether they're going to watch it or not. So I'm going to ask you this. Although you would love to have more people watch your show, right? Don't you feel that the fact that you've gotten this far, that you've made it, that you took an idea that was in your head and you made it real, right? Isn't that like one of the, I mean, it's not, again, maybe the most financially, always the financially successful thing.
It's absolutely incredible is what it is. I mean, it's, you know, for to sit there and just imagine something, and then to finally be able to just be like, you know, I'm thinking about that thing again, and then to be able to go watch it on TV, is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
I definitely will agree that, you know, I may not give myself as much credit as a lot of people have, but I still appreciate the fact that I did something pretty incredible.
Yeah, no, you did. You had a lot of help, but you did it, and that's all that matters, man. You should, like, that's all I'm. That's the kind of thought I want to leave you on. Is it sounds to me like you're a very driven guy. You care an awful lot, maybe a little bit too much about what some other people think, but by and large, you care about what you put into your work, and that's very admirable. And you should be commended for that. And I wish you nothing but continued success for it. But I do think, and maybe you should do this, you know, when you have more of a moment here and there. Yeah, you made something in your head real. That's pretty damn cool, dude. And you should enjoy that just a little bit.
I appreciate that, Joshua. Yeah, no, you're right. I think it's finally time for me to smell the roses.
At least for a minute. At least give yourself a good.
Eat some of the fruit, as me and Jessica were talking the other day. Eat some of the fruit that we grew.
Yeah.
Because now we have fruit. Maybe it's just I don't know what to do with it.
Well, that's it. That just give yourself a minute, man. It's okay. All right. Tomorrow you can fight again. Trust me. There'll be lots of other people to fight. But today, yeah, right. So. I think we have a good interview, sir. What do you think?
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate your time, Joshua. It was fun.
All right. So before we wrap up, why don't you tell people about your show and where people can find you?
Absolutely. I do apologize for this, but we did a quick release in Canada on YouTube for about a week. But as of now, I've taken it down. So unfortunately, unless you have a VPN, the only place you can watch it is on Amazon Prime in the US and or UK. But you can find me on Twitter at Quinton Barr, Facebook, Blue Flame, Lost City of West River, IMDB. We do have an Indiegogo up right now, just for we want to start selling on some merchandise. So it was kind of actually more creative, just to give a little bit of an opportunity for people that are enjoying what we're doing to. To contribute a little bit more towards the second episode, Blood Feud, and be able to get some swag before we actually launch a website to be able to purchase it. So kind of like a first come kind of thing.
Do you have the address for the Indiegogo?
It's just Indiegogo Blue Flame Blood Feud.
Okay.
Episode 2. I think it's just Blue Flame. Blood Feud, or Blue Flame Episode 2, Blood Feud.
Okay. All right. I think is there anything else, or is that everything?
No, I mean, I appreciate your time, and, I appreciate everybody that's listening, and, if ever you think that you can help, because we are actually looking for a Canadian platform, we have been talking with a couple people that are potentially interested in buying the content for theirs, but up until that happens, we still want to release. It's just tough to get on a Canadian platform right now because they are just really, really sticky with certain issues. Contractual stuff that may or may not be good for us, a good fit, right? So if there's potentially maybe, I put some feelers out to some networks here in Vancouver and some in Calgary, actually, that, if you wanted to help us with, even a one-day premiere so that it just gains more of a following for us would be absolutely fantastic. I'm not looking to bombard you with, needing a whole thing. Obviously, that would be amazing, but even just, a one-night premiere would be fantastic, right? So.
Fair enough. All right. This podcast for the month is sponsored by Third Space. It is a comedy world-building podcast in which your hosts, Kevin Youre and Jeremy Berkeley, create worlds based on tropes and concepts from movies, television, video games, books, and more. What does that mean exactly? It means you can expect worlds where humans level up, mascots are real, animals grant riches, and Skeletor wants you to rise up against the bourgeois. Why? Just cuz. It's also home to the Third Space World Generator, where using the power of the RNGesus from the internet, Kevin and Jeremy create brand new worlds from scratch. Third Space can be found on thirdspacepodcast.com or on the podcast app of your choice. And that was my conversation with Quinton Barr. Check out his series premiere, which is available now on Amazon Prime. Check it, look at it, give it a shot, and support it if you can. That will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so a number of different ways. You can subscribe to the podcast. I'm on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podomatic. Click on it, share it, comment, just pass the word around as best you can. I have merchandise, jpentelresco.redbubble.com. You want a Sparkle t-shirt, stay tuned next month. There's going to be a little giveaway in regards to that. Outside of that, there's my sponsors, Indie Imprint, your one-stop shop for all things independent. Stay tuned. I have great works from books, video games, music, you name it, they support it. Number one. Number two, Claudio Morgan, Decadent Souls, right? Water Entanglement. Those are his books out, and he also has a cool science fiction database. Third Space Podcast. Definitely check them out as well. Outside of that, YouTube channel is Joshua Penteloresco. Twitter, Instagram is at jpenteloresco. Come say hi. Guys, stay inspired. Keep doing your thing. I'll see you guys next time.
Josh.